Welcome to pro football. First 50 years, but we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. I mean, you can go online, and especially if you're going back to a game from the 20s or the 30s, so you can find out who won the game, a box score, I mean, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was, somebody kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might even be able to find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos here, nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So that's all right with you? Let's get it on. And today's game, exhibition game. The Washington Redskins and the Baltimore, because yes, they were the Baltimore Colts. And to me, I'm an old fart, so please forgive me. They will always be the Baltimore Colts. This Indianapolis, straight just total BS to me. The Baltimore Colts. Memorial Stadium, August 28th, 1959. That is to be the second game in a row that the Washington team has played in a memorial. The week before they played the Memorial Coliseum, this time it's the Memorial Stadium. Both places, to me, I'm an old fart once again. Absolutely beautiful. The Memorial Stadium brings back lots of memories. Fantastic games were played there. So, both teams will be the third exhibition game of the 1959 season. Back then they played 6 preseason games. So there were a couple of teams during that actually played 7 preseason games. Quite a few of the teams would wind up playing at like neutral sites. The Washington Redskins, I think it was the third week of the season, in 1950, before they actually played a home game, because they were sharing Griffith Stadium with the Washington Senators baseball team. And so all of their 6 preseason games or exhibition games, whatever you want to call them, were all played at either a neutral site or on the road. And the first 2 regular season games were played on the road. So they had to wait for basically the baseball season to be over with, but plus also the Washington Senators were not going to the World Series. But I guess pretty much the way they scheduled it was just in case Moses parted the Red Sea and somehow the Washington Senators baseball team made the World Series. They wanted to make sure, I guess, that the regular season and the regular season, baseball season, and the World Series would be over before the Washington Redskins would start playing their games at home. So both these teams were basically they were going in totally different directions. Of course, the Baltimore Colts are the defending champions. Once again, they would win the 1959 championship over the Giants. The Redskins, since 1945, that was the last championship appearance when they were the Washington Redskins. They played the Cleveland Rams in the 1945 championship game, but since 1940, if you include 1946, they only had 3 winning seasons in basically the past 14, 15 years. No championship appearances. They were going south. And in fact, the Redskins, they would actually have back-to-back 1-win seasons. This season, they only won 3 games. They were 3-9. The Colts were the exact opposite. They were 9-3. The Colts were, projecting up, and the Redskins were going into the abyss. It would take them another 10 years before their savior would come, obviously, Vince Lombardi, for, the one season, 1969. Then, of course, 2 years later in 71, George Allen would come around. And then, obviously, between Allen and Gibbs and all of that, the Redskins really started taking off in the 70s and the 80s. They were very, very good football team. But let's look at the scheduling here, shall we? All right. We'll go with the Redskins first, the 1959 season. As you'll see, there's not many W's. Matter of fact, there was, what, 4, I think? Yeah. So they played 18 games, right? 6 preseason, 12 regular season. 18 games. They got 4 wins all season long. 1 was in the preseason. Three. However, just to go to show you, on any given Sunday, the 3-9 Washington Redskins beat the 9-3 Baltimore Colts. Right here. It was a home game for the Redskins. They played the Colts. They won 27-24 at Griffith Stadium. So any given Sunday, anything can happen. One of the worst teams in all of football beat the best team. Right. But as I said, you'll notice here, they beat the Rams, who were not a very good team. They're the Redskins. And then they lost all their other preseason games. I mean, as you can see, their defense was not very good. They gave 52 points to the Bears. Once again, these are the preseason games, but then they gave 52 points to the Lions, who were not a very good team either. Then during the regular season, they gave up 49 points to the Cardinals. 34-30, 24-31, 45-34-20. Their defense was not very good. And then if you look on the offense, their offense was pretty not very good either. 10 points, 14-0 set, They had a couple games where they scored some points, but their team, if you look at their team, was just not very good. If you look at the Colts, right? You're going to see a whole lot of W's. Almost the exact. Look at these W's right here. They won the championship game. The W's here. They stumbled a couple here. Then they were 4-2 in the preseason. But if you look at the Redskins roster compared to the Colts roster, the Colts are just like one Hall of Famer after Alan Amici quite possibly would have been a Hall of Famer, but he got injured, I think, in the 1960 season, tore his Achilles, and he never played football ever again. He was very, very successful. Had he played another 4 or 5 years, because he won 2 championships, right? Had he played another 4 or 5 years, maybe, and maybe he had 8,000 or so yards. He still had, I think, over 4,000 yards rushing. Had he played another few seasons, he might have gone into the Hall of Fame. Raymond Berry's in the Hall of Fame. Art Donovan's in the Hall of Fame. Gino Marchetti's in the Hall of Fame. Lenny Moore's in the Hall of Fame. Jim Parker's in the Hall of Fame. Some guy by the name of Johnny Unitas, he's in the Hall of Fame. Their head coach, Weeb Eubank, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's the only head coach ever. And this can't be tied, can't be beat, can't be nothing. Weeb Eubank's the only one ever to win a NFL title in the NFL and in the AFL. Only one ever. He's in the Hall of Fame. Just a plethora. I'm going to Darren Diedorf you for a second. A plethora of Hall of Fame people on this call. It's a fantastic roster. Just a fantastic, really tough defense, but their offense is just like unbelievable. But since this game here was played in Memorial Stadium, but you'll notice here, like here, they played after this. They played the Steelers in the Orange Bowl. Then they played the Cardinals in Louisville, Kentucky, at Fairground Stadium in front of 16,000. Just weird. Sometimes nowadays you might get a game here or there, maybe that has like a neutral site to it, but there was a lot more of that going on back then. But as I said, the Colts, and then they would go on to win the championship. They were, 2 teams going in totally different directions. Right, but this game was played at Memorial Stadium, and near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love it. Let's see what we got here. Let's share the screen. Go over a little bit of Memorial Stadium here for you. Because also this Yeah, for me, it was also where obviously the Baltimore Orioles played their baseball games at too. And especially I started in 1970. The Colts were very good. The Colts, we're aging, and they would come crashing down after the 71 season. But I mean, when I first started watching, 70, they were very good. The Orioles were a very good team back then as well too. But Baltimore Memorial Stadium was a multi-purpose stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. And I guess there was two stadiums that were located in that area. The 1922 version, known primarily as Baltimore Stadium or Municipal Stadium, and a rebuilt double-deck multi-sport stadium completed in mid-1954 and rechristened Baltimore Memorial Stadium for short. Memorial Stadium for short. Memorial Stadium was launched as Municipal Stadium, also sometimes known as Baltimore Stadium or Venable Stadium. You got that? There'll be a test at the end of this video on that. It was built, the original one, 1922, over a 6-month period. It was primarily a football stadium, a large horseshoe with an earthen mound exterior, and it's open end with a large stone gateway. But in this configuration, it seated anywhere from 70 to 80,000 people back in the 20s. That was a large size stadium. It was a baseball park. In July 1944, Municipal Stadium was pressed into service as a baseball park for the Baltimore Orioles of the International League. Then the first Baltimore Colts franchise terminated operations for financial reasons at the end of the 1950 season. Community support for a second NFL franchise remained strong. However, in the late 1952, a group of Baltimore businessmen pooled their resources in a bid to win a new league franchise. A Bring Back the Colts drive launched in December 1952, generated the pre-sale of 15,000 season tickets in just 6 weeks. The campaign made an impression on and Baltimore, then the 6th largest city in the United States, was awarded an expansion team for the 1953 season. So, they got here, right? They said April 15, 1954, thousands of Baltimoreans, there you go, jammed city streets as new Orioles paraded from downtown at Baltimore City Hall to Memorial Stadium for their first home game. It's a shame. Abandonment. The dual-use stadium was not without its critics. However, the traffic and a parking shortage made accessing the stadium difficult. Concrete poles, blocked views, and unsheltered areas grew hot in the summer. Most of the seats were bench style, with few having chair backs, let alone more modern amenities. The NFL's Baltimore Colts were the first to express deep dissatisfaction and to seek a new venue. In addition to suboptimal conditions at Memorial Stadium, capacity was a concern, with the Colts selling out every home game from the start of the 1964 season to the end of the 1970 and unable to meet demand for season tickets. It's a shame. I mean, if you have an extra 5 or 10,000 people, whatever that want, and you can't, Shame. 1970, Colts owner Carol Rosenblum announced that he was seeking a 500-acre parcel in one of 3 suburban Baltimore counties for construction of a new stadium. No stadium deal was ever completed by Rosenblum, though. But of course, is what we wound up happening. Right? The demolition of the stadium, obviously the Colts leaving for Indianapolis, just very, very sad. Very, very sad. Moving to an indoor stadium, what a joke to me. Anyway, please forgive me. I'm an old-time fart, so it's, Football is supposed to be played outdoors. I mean, on the grass, in the weather elements, not indoors on artificial turf. That's an absolute joke to me, but it's a shame. I mean, some of the stadiums, I mean, you look at like Wrigley Field, it's been around forever. Fenway Park, it's been around forever. They didn't knock that down. Somehow they found a way to, keep it around. Shame some of these stadiums just kind of fall apart and there's not much they can do. A lot of them is that one of the problems they have is I said, is that, they maybe weren't, when they built it, weren't looking 30, 40 years or whatever down the road. I mean, a lot of times, like some of the places are just absolutely a freaking nightmare getting in and out of, or when 50, 60,000 people leaving all at one time. It's a freaking nightmare. Sometimes places don't have enough parking, the seating, and just some of it is it just gets very, very outdated. As I said, some of the times the players complain, the amenities are not very good. So, unfortunately, things have to happen. Unfortunately, sometimes for change to have it happen, teams just get up and they go someplace else because there's cities out there that don't have obviously football teams, and they'll do whatever they can, bend over backwards to get a NFL franchise to come out, including a brand new stadium, beautiful, pretty stadium, and all that. It is what it is. But let's take a little trip down memory lane. We got, of course, the first, and they call it, I guess it's called the Duel in the Dust, 1970 AFC Championship game, the first ever with the merger, right? The AFC champion, right? The Raiders and the Colts. The Colts would wind up winning 27-17. Just, a lot of, you can see the dust here, right? I mean, it wasn't, the grass wasn't. There wasn't any grass by the end of the season. I mean, maybe we got Johnny Unitas being chased, right? See all the dust right here. There's Ben Davidson right there. He got his face mask right there. There's George Blanda. See, I mean, ain't no grass there, just all dirt. Hey, the little sun came out for a little bit, right? A little bit of sun. Right. This is the one that the clinching scored the clinching TV. Ray Perkins caught a pass, made the final score 27-17. Then we got, of course, this season. Now this was one of the obviously things that made it appealing in the Western Conference to win the conference, the conference, was that you got to host the championship game, and obviously my thumbnail. This is my thumbnail right here. This is from the 59 championship game. This is Pat Summerall kicking one of his 3 field goals. The Giants would be up 9-7, actually going into the fourth quarter, and then all heck broke loose. Colts scored 24 points within like 13 seconds, and they were up 31-9, and then the Giants scored like about a minute to go. As time was running out, but you can see here, this is from the championship game right here, Earl Frank Gifford. This is after the championship game. Crowd on the field. The crowd is on the field. We got here right here. Rosie Greer. Andy Robustelli, could be Jim Parker right here. So basically, you got 3 Hall of Famers. You got 6 guys right here. 3 of them are in the Hall of Fame. This is Parker right here. Could be, because that's the guard. Here's the tackle. There's Parker blocking Robustelli, and you got Johnny. So you got 3 guys right here, all in the Hall of Fame. You don't see that stuff nowadays. Just it's a very, very memorable game. I mean, I guess this game really wasn't that memorable. It wasn't, it was close for a while. Then the Colts started blowing them out. Let's see here. Okay, then we just got. Then there's also, of course, there's where the Orioles played as well too. Gotta find it here. There we go. It's an overhead shot right here. I mean, you look right here. I mean, I don't know what year this is, but yeah, there ain't much grass here at all. But I mean, I was looking at this. Right? That's what walking out. That's Memorial Stadium. You know what that is right there. I mean, obviously there. So this is either it must be a baseball game. The guys come there, cut off shirt and all that. It's a good chance it's a baseball game. Now you can see high above right here. You see the football field. You see it right here. So basically, it went long ways here, right? Home plate was down here. And dead center field was where the other end zone was. There you go. Right, you got home field down here. And now the Ravens played here. I think for like 1 year or so, or whatever it was, maybe. But of course, you gotta find where it's at here. Here's another picture. I don't know what game this is. We see all the dust being kicked up there and everything. Well, there were some here. I mean, not that this. I mean, how cool is this, right? The fog in the background. You can't even see the stands or anything back here. There's Sam Huff, right? Johnny Unitas. Right? Probably that same game. Cool picture. Here we go, right here. It's a shame. Yeah. Demolition and afterlife of Baltimore Memorial. I see there's a bunch of weeds growing in there and everything. It's a shame. Well, it's been abandoned for however long here. It's a shame. It really is a shame. But I mean, this is it's very, very outdated. This is where people are sitting on concrete. Not that things were fantastic nowadays. I mean, because you got a seat and you're like really, you sit in the seats, you're crammed in there. But unfortunately, it is what it is. But you can say stuff just gets outdated, unfortunately. Now you look here, right? You got poles here. Some people, they're sitting back here. Some of the sometimes their view is obstructed. There's a color shot of it, right? Look at it. You see the weeds and stuff and the poles and everything. And just, right, very, very sad, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. But all right, so we got some articles here to go over. Now, obviously, the Colts were favored in this game. So we got the Evening Star here. The August 28th, 1959 edition of the Evening Star. Nixon, the coach of the Redskins, he would only last one more season as the Redskins coach. in 1960, they would have a 1-win season. And that's okay. But so the Redskins would follow that up with another 1-win season in 1961. But the champion Baltimore Colts are expected to chalk up the third straight exhibition victory tonight when they play the host to the Redskins at 8:30 at Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. But it may not come easy, although the Colts are heavy favorites. Coach Mike Nixon of the Redskins says, "We're ready," said the Washington squad prepared to board buses for the 40-mile trip. "We know the Colts are strong offensively and defensively, but we think we'll give them some competition." Asked if he'd be satisfied to hold the favorite champions to a 2-touchdown margin, Nixon qualified his answer. "Not if our first team plays 3/4 of the game and gets beat by 2 touchdowns," he said. "But if our rookies play most of it and show me something, I'll be satisfied. This game is primarily a test for the rookies." Mike intends to go as far as he can with newcomers, but if the Colts show signs of making a runaway of it, he'll rush his regulars to the rescue. Fullback Don Bosler, who needs work but has been nursing a bruised shoulder, definitely will not play, Nixon said. Johnny Olszewski, who did yeoman duty against the 49ers and Rams on the West Coast, will start the game, with Sam Baker spelling him. Baker, who has been resting his kicking leg, will do the punting, but Bob Toneff, former San Francisco tackle, will handle the kickoffs. It's always funny because sometimes you get these big, like Lou Groza, Steve Myra of the Colts. Sometimes you get these big offensive linemen who do the kickoffs, and they'd be running straight on. They kick the ball, straight on. That was always interesting to see. Don Ball is another question mark at left guard because of a freak leg injury, and Maryland's Jack Davis probably will start in his stead. Don Lawrence of Notre Dame, who has also been playing defense, also, let's see, now we got to unfortunately, it takes a while. I do apologize. You could probably go grab a nap. Let's see, a 53. So try this. Maybe this was it. See if this is it here. Here we go. We'll get a shot at another Irish alumnus, Bob Witaska, will be tried as an offensive and defensive end. With Eagle Day at quarterback and Mike Sommer and Ed Sutton at the halves, the Redskins will buck a bulky and belligerent Colt defense that has scored more points than Baltimore's first 2 victims. The Colts whitewashed the College All-Stars 29-0 and humbled the New York Giants, their title game opponents, last December 28-3. 8 points scored on an interception pass and a safety were contributed by Baltimore's potent defense. If Day doesn't click, Eddie LeBaron, star of the Redskins' 23-21 victory over the Rams and a 27-24 loss to the 49ers, along with Dick James and Jim Podoley, will be rushed into the fray. James probably will have to go both ways if the secondary can't stop Johnny Unitas' passing. Washington secondary will include Bob Hudson from the Philadelphia Eagles and Doyle Nix at the safeties, Bobby Hopp of Auburn, Chick Chikowski, and Ben Scotty of Maryland, and Les Walters at the wings. Art Gobb of Pittsburgh, Frank Kuchta of Notre Dame, and Emil Karras Karras of Dayton, and Fred Hood, Northeast Oklahoma linebackers. Between 20,000 and 25,000 fans, about 2,000 of them from Washington, are expected to see the 7th game in the preseason series between the 2 teams. Now, obviously, don't forget, right? You got Baltimore and Washington, very closely related, right? Very close, very close proximity to one another. All right. But, of course, the Colts would wind up prevailing in this game here. All right, so we're going to go to the – I can find it. The August 29th, 1959 edition of the Evening Star, the Washington Evening Star. Defeat by Colts gives Nixon some ideas for the future. The Redskins will leave today for Jacksonville, Florida, and next week's game with Chicago Bears with some definite ideas about the future after taking a 23-10 drubbing from the champion Colts before 22,409 fans here last night. Now, there's a stark contrast because they had well over 80,000 fans the week before the Redskins when they played in Memorial Coliseum against the Rams. And they played the stadium was almost totally filled. Well over 80,000 fans. And then they come here and they only play in front of 22,000. Eagle Day's performance at quarterback apparently clinched the number 2 role for him over ailing Ralph the Googe. I just call him the Googe instead of Guglielmi. Ben Scotty, former Maryland and being converted into a defensive back, proved once again that he is a diamond in the rough. And Coach Mike Nixon must be more convinced than ever that he needs help at offensive guard and tackle. Nixon decided to tackle Chuck Griffith, 6'8", 285-pounder from Southern California via Bowling Air Base, didn't fit in with his plans and dropped him. When the team reaches Jacksonville, he'll dismiss defensive end Ted Leahy of Presbyterian and defensive halfback Bobby Hopp of Auburn. Misfortune also struck down Jack Davis, former Maryland guard who re-injured his knee early in the game and had to be helped off the field. It may be the finish for Davis. Unfortunately, that's one of the things in these preseason games. And, unless you're somebody who's, a bona fide star, you get injured, it's like, bye-bye. Your best ability is your availability. You can't make the club in the tub, right? Also hurt was Gene Chikowski, defensive back, who was admitted to Union Memorial Hospital with a slight concussion. His attending physician said today he wouldn't be surprised if Chikowski was released tomorrow morning. The beefy Colts were too strong physically and too slick for the Redskins. They took the opening kickoff and, with quarterback Johnny Unitas calling the tune, went 70 yards on 9 plays for the first of 2 touchdowns. Johnny Unitas, unfreaking believable. It was apparent that Nixon's rookies, whom he had determined to test, couldn't hold the champions. I guess I expected too much of them, Mike said. But it was a good game. We found out some of the things we had to know. We also found out some things we didn't know. Which we liked. I don't like to lose, but I'm not discouraged by this game. You see some stats there, right? The Redskins only had 13 first down, 97 yards rushing, 168 yards passing. That grand total was at 265 yards of total offense. They only completed 11 of 19. However, the Colts were only 13 to 23, but the Colts basically got twice as many rushing yards. And if whatever, 79 more rushing yards, you get 176 yards rushing. That's a solid day, boy. Let me tell you what. That's controlling the clock, controlling the ball. You got the other defense trying to stop the run. That's very tiring. The Colts actually scored only 1 touchdown under their own steam, although Coach Weeb Eubank also used rookies plentifully. The second came on the first play of the second half when Day was jarred loose from the ball by 255-pound Don Joyce Gino Marchetti, the Colts' all-pro defensive end, swooped down on the pigskin and loped 16 yards to the end zone for the score. Baltimore lost a third touchdown when L.G. Dupree's 52. Let's go to the next page. Might take an hour and a half to load. So L.G. Dupree's 52. There we go. Whoops. Do apologize. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. L.G. Dupree's 52-yard scoring run in the second period was nullified by an offside penalty. The Colts' additional 9 points came on Bert Rickardson's 48-yard field goal in the second quarter and two more 21 and 24 yards by Steve Myra in the third and fourth periods. So I get maybe Richard Charles maybe was the long-distance field goal kicker because they had that kind of back then. And Steve Myra, he's the one that kicked the game-tying field goal in the 58 championship to send the game into overtime. He kicked the two short ones of 21 and 24 yards. Mike Nixon said Day needs plenty of work, but that he expects him to improve. Day completed 3 of 6 passes. The big one was a 39-yard strike to Bill Anderson, who made a picture book catch to put the ball on the Baltimore 17-yard line in position for Sam Baker's field goal near the end of the first half. At that point, however, Eddie LeBaron entered the game. He called for Sam's kick on third down, causing some head-scratching in the press box. Yeah. Nixon later recalled that near the end of the half in the Rams game, LeBaron passed to Johnny Olszewski on the 3-yard line. With only seconds remaining, the Los Angeles linemen draped themselves all over Johnny O, preventing him from getting up before time ran out. So Mike didn't want that to happen again. So that quite possibly might be why they got down to the 17-yard line toward the end of the first half. And they didn't want the same thing to happen like on third down. Maybe they complete a pass and then the Colts like pile on the guy and take 10, 20 seconds or whatever before they start on piling and all that because the clock just keeps running. So he didn't want that to happen again. So that's why he's like, you know what? I'm going to kick on third down. That way there can't be no piling on and holding the guy down and letting the clock run out or anything like that. So I'm going to kick on third down. So yeah, I guess you can't blame him there. LeBaron continued his hot streak with 7 completions in 12 tries. He took the team 85 yards for its lone touchdown in the waning minutes of the game. The payoff was a 16-yard toss to Jim Podoley over Art DiCarlo in an end zone corner. It was the first touchdown scored on the Colts in 3 games. With Big Don Ball sidelined by a leg injury, the Redskins were doubly handicapped at guard when Davis was hurt. Rookie Don Lawrence of Notre Dame, although tabbed for defensive work, took over and turned in a credible performance. Some more experienced Redskins didn't do as well, but it might be attributed to the 89-degree temperature. 90 degrees. On their side, the Colts didn't have Raymond Berry. Bespectacled pass-catching end or Leo Sanford, 230-pound linebacker. But they had enough with Ray Krause, Gino Marchetti, Big Daddy Lipscomb, Don Joyce, and Art Donovan to choke off the Redskins' running game with just 97 yards. Billy Pricer was the Colts and game's leading ground gainer with 48 yards on 11 tries, while Ed Sutton topped the Redskins with 35 on 7 carries. Unitas, who also later gave way to Andy Nelson, completed 5 of 9 passes, 58 yards, but had a couple of promising drives broken up by the Redskins secondary, with Scotty playing a leading role. The Marylander was flagged down once on a pass interference penalty that possibly saved 6 points. But later in that same series, Ben nailed touchdown-bound Jim Mutscheller, and in the fourth period, he broke up a potential 6-pointer to the same Mutscheller and Dupree. guess, is that it? Looks like that's about it. We got a picture here. Can't, very, very difficult to see. Is the way it usually looks, right? These nighttime games, you see players here. Then in the background, it's like just totally black. So here we have, aided by a perfect block by Lenny Moore on an unidentified Redskin, halfback L.G. Dupree of the Colts rambles some 50 yards for an apparent touchdown in the second quarter last night in Baltimore. An offside penalty called back the play, but the Colts won anyway, 23-10. Also shown a quarterback, Raymond Brown, 17 of Baltimore, and halfback Les Walters, 27 of the Redskins. There's Lenny Moore. There's Dupree. There's Lenny Moore. All right. Now, next we got the Baltimore Sun. All right. Let's see what we got here. All right. The August 29th, 1959 edition of the Baltimore Sun. Let's see what we got here. Colts romp over Redskins 23-10 in exhibition. What we got here? This is a good picture. You can actually see the background. Up. Let me refresh the page here. Okay, here we go. What do we got here? What do we got? A little bit of action here. Leaping Lenny Lyles, Colt halfback. Lyles manages to get only one hand on a pass from halfback Lenny Moore in the first half of exhibition game with the Washington Redskins. The pass fell out incomplete as Redskin defensive back Les Walters defends. All right. Sub-backs pace attack for victors. Lewis Johnson stars Unitas keeps team on the ground. Washington did what Baltimore's first two opponents couldn't do. That was score a touchdown, but it was too little, too late as the Colts coasted through the third straight exhibition football triumph, 23-10 over the Redskins last night before a slim stadium crowd of just 22,409. And you also figure, too, because these two teams are very close in proximity to one another. But also, you figure that the Colts are the defended Super Bowl champion, NFL champions. And you figure they have a lot of, and they're still very good, and they would wind up winning the championship that year, but it is what it is. For 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 59 seconds, the Colt defense, led by the 6 tons of fun in the forward wall, had kept its goal line uncrossed against the college All-Stars and the New York Giants and the Redskins. But Eddie LeBaron finally punctured it with a 16-yard pass to Jim Podoley in the last minute and 1 second of the game last night. So for the longest time, I guess it was 23-3 for the longest time. Let's see. Until LeBaron's pass, the Colts defense had actually held a scoring edge over their 3 opponents, 14-6. So actually, after this game, they still had an advantage, 14-13. Their defense, the Colts defense, actually scored 14 points in their first 3 preseason games. They only gave up 13 points. Baltimore's defensive platoon has previously scored 8 points against the All-Stars on a safety and an interception touchdown. Although they failed to score against the Giants last week, Captain Gino Marchetti, defensive end, put the Colts defense back in the touchdown column with a 16-yard scoring sprint with a fumble. Gino received a big assist from his end teammate, Don Joyce, who caused the Redskin quarterback, Eagle Day, to fumble with a hard tackle. Marchetti's touchdown was Baltimore's 16th point. Steve Meyer converted his second extra point to make it 17. Later, Meyer kicked a 21 and 24-yard field goals as the Colt attack bogged down deep in Redskin territory. Yeah, so I guess they bogged down. So you figure he went back. Says they got. I guess they got down to about the 14-yard line here and about the 17-yard line there. Playing with reserve backs and subs wherever possible, the Colts mustered only one long touchdown drive. That was the one at the beginning of the game. That was for the opening kickoff when they covered 70 yards in just 9 plays to score on a John Unitas and Jerry Richardson pass of 6 yards. Unitas hurled only 2 passes during that drive. The last 2 otherwise, Curly Johnson, Billy Pricer, and Hal Lewis did the yeoman's work with the rushes. Johnson and Lewis were 2 of the offensive halfbacks Coach Weeb Eubank wanted to get a good look at in the Redskin game. Neither hurt his chances, with Lewis looking very good. Burt Rechichar accounted for the other 3 Colt points with a 48-yard field goal early in the second period. Raymond Brown and Andy Nelson, regular safety men attempting to be replacements for Unitas at quarterback, played the second and fourth quarters respectively. Of the pair, Nelson looked better. He is undoubtedly the best running quarterback the Colts have ever had, and his passes are on target most of the time. L.G. Dupree, Lenny Moore, and Alan Amici, the regular Colt, page 14, column 5. Column 5, so we got hold up the top here. So we got column 1, we got column 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here we go. Those players in the offensive backfield were used sparingly. So, I mean, the Colts didn't even really use, they said Raymond Barry didn't play, Alan Amici hardly played, L.G. Dupree, Lenny Moore. So a lot of their big-time stars didn't hardly even play. Even at that, Dupree got away for a 47-yard scoring sprint called back on a penalty in the third period. That was the offside penalty. The Colt defense was so tough, the Redskins failed to get a first down via passing or rushing until 12 minutes of the first quarter was over. Wow. Prior to that, the Colts had taken the kickoff and marched to a score with Lewis, Pricer, and Johnson leading the way. On the 4th down and 6 yards from pay dirt, Unitas elected to go for the score and hit Richardson 1 yard deep in the end zone for Baltimore's first point. So they went for it on 4th down and 6 yards to go. Now, quite possibly, had this been the regular season, the Colts probably would have kicked the field goal, or tried to kick the field goal to get the points. Probably because it was preseason with 4th down and 6 yards to go. That's probably why they went for it. Early in the second period, the Colts marched from their own 15 to the Redskin 40. Rechichar then came in to boot a 48-yard field goal. A little later, a fake field goal attempt failed as Johnny Sample, the holder, tried a pass from the 35-yard line. Just after this play, the Redskins, on the impetus of a long pass to Bill Anderson for 39 yards, got in the scoring column on a 17-yard field goal by Sam Baker. Then came the third period with the Redskins receiving and getting scored on their first play from scrimmage. Day, attempting to run, was hit hard by Joyce. The ball bounced loose, and Gino Marchetti scooped it up on the 16 and ambled in for the Colts' second and last touchdown of the night. Later, the Colts drove from their own 13 to the Redskins' 13, but had to settle for a 17-yard field goal by Steve Myra. Milt Davis presented the offense with a scoring opportunity just before the third quarter ended when he intercepted a LeBaron pass and raced from the Colt 46 to the Redskin 28. When surrounded, Milt lateraled off to Bill Pellington, linebacker, who carried to the 19. Again, the Colts couldn't move, and Myra field goal was from 24 yards long. Midway of the quarter, the Colts marched from their 30 to the Redskins' 5, but Nelson missed connections on the last down, so they could have kicked another field goal had they wanted to. From this point, the Redskins moved for their touchdown 95 yards away. It was LeBaron pass to Johnny Olszewski, Carson, and Joe Walton, which ate up the yardage to the 16-yard line. Then LeBaron, running to escape a savage rush by the Colts, threw the potally in the end zone and thus ended Baltimore's great defensive record. So you got all right. So we got here. We got he's got the start lineups here. Now, what you look here, the way this is, you got ends, right? They got the offense and defense, ends here. Tackles, they got Donovan is the defensive tackle. Big Daddy Lipscomb's the defensive tackle. Krause and Parker are the offensive tackles. Spinney and Sandusky. At center, Nutter. Back. And they got backs. They don't have quarterback or running. They just have back. Unitas, Dupree, Moore, Michi, Tassif, But as you can see right here, they had a lot of, this is the preseason, so like everybody played. But you see, right, same thing here, There's all the players pretty much that played for the Redskins as well, too. I mean, pretty much, I guess, the whole squad. Yeah, you see right here what we got. It was 10 to 3 at halftime, 20-3. Then the Colts scored again to make it 23-3, and then the Redskins scored as time was running out. Same thing here. I got 308 total yards, 255 by the Redskins. Colts picked off one Redskin pass, ran it back 45 yards. Let's see. Colts punted one time. Redskins punted 6. So, and then of course, the Redskins fumbled the one time, which led directly to a touchdown for the Colts. So those a lot of times those turnovers, they'll get you. Several casualties were reported before hostilities began last night. The Redskins had 2 of their regulars in civvies, while Raymond Berry, star Colt offensive end, also relaxed on the sidelines in a sports shirt. The 2 injured Redskins were Don Bosler, fullback, and Don Ball, huge offensive guard. Bosler is suffering with a bruised shoulder, while Ball has an injured leg. Berry's trouble is his leg. Before festivities of a gridiron nature started last night, several awards were presented. Ray Brown, Colt safetyman, received the Sports Boosters Award for the Outstanding Rookie in 1958, while Alex Sandusky, veteran Colt offensive guard, was presented with a wristwatch from his admirers at the Clarion, Pennsylvania. Sandusky played his college football for Clarion State Teachers. Interesting. All right. Let's see. Then we got one more here. We got the Daily Times. So let's go to the August 29th, 1959 edition of the Daily Times. If I can find it. There we are. All right. Weeb's headache. Whom should he cut? Weeb Ewbank has a headache that most pro football coaches would like to be nursing. His problem is just this. Weeb has so many good rookies, he doesn't know where to start cutting on the roster of 43 players. 8 must be axed to bring the squad down to the required 35 men. Wow, could you imagine that? 35. Nowadays we got 53. Although I think you only dress 46 of them, I think it is, but there's 53 guys on the roster. Back then it was just 35. The rookies sure gave Weeb Ewbank something to mull over last night as they paced the Hosses to a 23-10 exhibition win over the Washington Redskins in Baltimore. Hal Lewis and Curly Johnson played most of the way at offensive halfbacks and looked good, especially Lewis with his cutting and darting off tackle and around the flanks. Johnson didn't get much chance to exhibit his punting ability. The Colts were required to kick only once, which indicates how they dominated the game. And then the Houston, Texas Husky got off a 48-yarder. And Jerry Richardson, offensive end, continued to shine with his pass snatching. He was on the receiving end of the Colts' first touchdown pass, a 6-yard flip from Johnny Unitas. Unitas threw only 2 passes during the 70-yard push. Billy Pricer, Lewis, and Johnson moved the ball downfield with their running. Burt Richardson counted for 3 other points early in the second period with a 48-yard field goal. Then the Baltimore defensive team took over. Gino Marchetti ran 16 yards with a recovered fumble for another TD. Don Joyce caused Eagle Day, Redskin quarterback, to bobble the ball with a vicious tackle. That was the 16th point. Myrick later booted field goals of 21 and 24 yards. Washington finally scored their first touchdown of the exhibition season against the Colts late in the final quarter. Well, it wasn't Washington finally scored the first touchdown of the exhibition season. Against the Colts. It was the first touchdown scored against the Colts. I read it. Well, I thought it was the first touchdown. They meant it was the first touchdown that Washington scored in preseason, which isn't true. But Washington finally scored the first touchdown against the Colts defense in the exhibition. Late in the final quarter, Eddie LeBaron hit Jim Podoley with a 16-yard scoring toss with less than 2 minutes remaining. The Hosses' goal line was uncrossed during the 2 previous games with the College All-Stars and the New York Giants. Now, basically, what it was is, back then, is that whoever won the championship the year before, the Baltimore Colts, pretty much their first, preseason game was against the College All-Stars. Raymond Brown and Andy Nelson, regular defensive backs, bidding as quarterback depth to Unitas. So you got these defensive players who are playing like cornerback or safety, or we're trying to step in, actually be quarterback depth behind Johnny Unitas. So they played the second and fourth quarters respectively. It can't be denied that Nelson looks the best of the two. His passes were on target most of the time, but what caught the eye of everyone was his ball toting. Andy runs better than Unitas. Several times he picked up sizable yardage on keep plays, skirting around the flank or slicing off tackle. Brown is still hurrying his passes, although he is given ample protection in the pocket, and he doesn't appear to be directing the team with the sureness of Nelson. Lenny Moore, Alan Amici, and L.G. Dupree saw a limited service while the rookies were being showcased. However, Dupree reeled off a 46-yard scoring dash, which was called back because of a penalty in the third period. Baltimore's defense, those 4 big giants up front, Gino Marchetti, Art Donovan, Big Daddy Lipscomb, and Don Joyce, were so tough the Redskins failed to register a first down rushing or passing until 12 minutes of the first quarter was over. LeBaron and Day, Washington quarterbacks, were rushed savagely all night. They had a pocket, that's true, but it proved to be a flimsy structure. Webank pulled one of his old favorites in the second quarter, and it failed. It was the fake field goal attempt, which Johnny Sample, the holder, tried to pass from the 35-yard mark. Milt Davis presented the Colts with another scoring chance in the waiting stages of the third quarter, intercepting a LeBaron pass on his 46 and legging it to the Skins' 28. When about to be tackled by a swarm of Huskies, he lateraled off to Bill Pellington, who carried it down to the 18. But Nelson couldn't move the team, and Myrick came in to kick a 24-yard field goal. The Colts had the ball on the Washington 5 midway in the fourth period, and again, Nelson failed with a pass on the last down. It seems as though Nelson has trouble moving the attack inside the opposition's 20. The Hosses next opposed Bobby Lane and the Pittsburgh Steelers Friday night in Miami, Florida. Interesting. Corralling the Colts to be carried locally. Corralling the Colts The National Brewing Company's Pro Football TV show will be carried this year on WBOC TV, Salisbury, beginning Monday. The half-hour show is seen Monday night, 7:30 to 8 p.m. throughout the pro football season. With Chuck Thompson and Bailey Goss as hosts, the show highlights a film report of the Baltimore Colts game played on the previous weekend and slows down the most exciting key plays on a special projector for explanation of Colt players and coaches appearing on the program. A special feature of the program is the Fans Want to Know portion. The best questions submitted by fans each week are answered by the Colts. Panel members on the show of August 31st will be Don Collette, Club Vice President and General Manager Don McCaffrey, end coach and scout, and Leo Sanford, linebacker. Films of the Colt Redskin game played last night in Baltimore will be shown. So, they had a lot of teams had their own, right after the games were over, they had their own, highlights and all that and everything. But, this was, as you can see, as it was in the one article, Weeb Eubank and the Colts had a problem. They had too many good players. The Redskins did not have enough good players. And it would show, throughout the season. As I said, they would only go on to win 3 games. 1960, they would win 1 game. And to make it matters even worse, in 1961, they would only win 1 game. But what made it even worse was in 1961, they played 14 games compared to the 1 win that they had in 1960 when they only played 12 games. So 2 teams going in totally opposite directions. But this was an exhibition game played between the Redskins and the Colts. But as you can also see, is that one of the games coming up was, they're going to be playing like a game. It was like the Colts going to be playing. Who were they playing? The Steelers in the Orange Bowl, in a neutral site game, and then the Colts were going to be playing the Chicago Cardinals in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of neutral site games, but so. This was kind of as to be expected. The Colts would wind up winning 23-10 over the Baltimore Colts. So that's the way it was on this date, August 28th, 1959, between the Baltimore Colts and the Washington Redskins at Memorial Stadium in pro football's first 50 years. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.